Howdy folks, it's Dad here with Terry Family Adventures, and today I'm drinking fancy coffee, and we're going to talk about the engine mounts in your WK2 Grand Cherokee.
Terry Family Adventures.
So if you own one of these WK2s, at some point you're going to come outside and you're going to find a little oil drip. Might be a big oil drip underneath your the front side and passenger side, driver's side, don't matter. There's one on each side. You're going to find an oil drip on the ground. You're going to wonder. You're going to look up there. It's going to be dripping down past your axle onto the ground. And you're going to look up in there, and right off the bat, you're not going to see anything that you think could be dripping out. It's your engine mount. I just recently changed mine. As you can see, that's where it's supposed to be. And then, like, all the oil's gone out of it. Yes, these are oil filled. Back in the 70s, they used to oil fill engine mounts all the time. And then polyurethane made its presence known. And they started making engine mounts out of polyurethane. And I have no idea why Jeep decided to go back to this really... It's not a good design. These things, well, they need to be changed regularly. And you can tell this one's completely flat. The other day I had it squeaking. You know, it was gurgling because there was still a little bit of oil in there. Maybe it's the other one. I broke both of mine. As you can see, they're pretty bad. They're supposed to be filled with oil and they get all puffed up. They hold the engine mount up, and then they use, you know, the power fluid to dampen your motor from everything. See, oil. And so I'm actually going to cut this one open, show you the oil out of there, so that you can see the, you know, what color it is and everything, because, you know, it kind of looks like engine oil, but not really. It'll be dripping down past your CV axles, and you'll look in there, there won't be nothing. And so, let's get this thing going. I got a razor knife here. I'm gonna just cut right through the bottom of this thing. I've already put new ones in. And so, you see how wet that is? Let's see here. Ooh, that's perfect. This worked out better than I thought I was going to. I got a piece of, there's the number if for your, so you can order new ones if you want these cheap Duralast ones. Actually, if you could go down to the comments if you know an upgrade, like some kind of polyurethane or anything else, go ahead and comment down below and let me know, because these things have to be changed every 40 to 60,000 miles. I'm pretty sure that I just put my Jeep has 102k on it, and I'm pretty sure that that's the third set to go into it. But see that oil dripping out? Whoa, as I pour it on the ground. I was trying to avoid that. But you can see that it's oil filled. It's not quite the same consistency as engine oil and not quite the same color, and so you're going to be like, well, I don't think it's engine oil, but it's not the same color as plow or steering fluid. It's not the same, you know, like bright red of transmission fluid. And you're going to have this weird drip on the ground, and this is going to be what it is. It's your engine mounts. I have no idea why Jeep decided to go back to such an archaic design as oil filled, but they did. It doesn't make any sense to me. But so now we're going to discuss changing them. As obviously you can see, I just did mine. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips and advice on how to change your engine mounts. You're gonna go online. There's not gonna be a really great video. And when I went online and noticed there really wasn't a great video of it, I thought I was gonna make a great video of it. And it turns out you're just working in the blind. You can't see anything. You're basically doing the entire job by feel, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. And so my advice to you is there's two separate videos. There is a video where you look up, you see a guy, he's changing his oil mounts, but he leaves his camera sitting on a desk the entire time and doesn't really give you like a real up close look of what you need to do. And so, well, look, I'm gonna pop open the hood and we'll discuss it over there. Alright, so we're over here in the engine bay, and to do the engine mounts, you have to you'll disconnect the engine mounts, you put your floor jack underneath the oil pan, put a block of wood under there, and you'll have to jack up the engine far enough that you can get the old engine mounts out and the new engine mounts in. And by far enough, I mean the whole length of that stud. It's a pretty long stud, and so you basically have to jack up the engine at least 2.5 inches. It's best if you go like 2.5 inches because you'll need some wiggle room. The old ones will be flat, but the new ones will be all puffed up, and so you'll have to, like, we end up jacking up the engine and then pulling the old ones out and then having to give the jack 2 more clicks before we could get the new ones in because these things are so flat and the new ones are so puffed up. And so, but to jack up the engine, there is a lot of stuff in the way here. We'll take this beauty cover off and we'll show you the issues that you're really going to have. So one of the main issues is this intake. There's not even really room for me to get my fingers between here. You're going to have to jack up the engine that far, and my finger barely even fits. And so everything off of the top of the engine, it all has to come off. All this, the whole intake, everything, it all has to come off. I used this time to go ahead and change my spark plugs, which if you're going to go online to YouTube and look up a video of how to do this job, I suggest you find a good video of how to change your spark plugs, because you have to take the top of this engine off that far, and there are good videos out there of how to change your spark plugs that are very detailed and step by step, every bolt, every nut that you have to take off to get all this stuff off of the top of the engine. At that point, there are some tools that you're going to have. I really thought that I would just be able to work around it with like some other tool in my kit. I've got a bunch of angled wrenches and a bunch of other things that I thought would be a great workaround. It turned out that none of that stuff worked. You are going to need a flathead screwdriver that is long, like really long. This thing, I don't know how many inches long it is, but quite long. Like there's a throttle body right out to the elbow, really long one. You're not going to be able to see it because, like I said, most of the stuff you have to do by feel. But down here on this side, on the driver's side, there is a little clip that holds an AC line onto one of the bolts that you have to loosen. You don't have to take it all the way out, but you have to loosen it, and you'll need this screwdriver to pry that part back far enough that you can loosen it far enough to get the clip off that pulls off this whole intake. The next thing that you're going to need is a ratcheting set of metric wrenches. There is not enough room to move. You're going to want to make sure, I think these ones have a 5-degree turn before they click, and you are going to need ratcheting wrenches. There's no way around it. I have 1,000 extensions. I have your exhaust manifolds are in the way. You can't get extensions with sockets, nothing. You have to have some ratcheting wrenches to get in there. Other than that, the only thing that I can say is that hopefully if you have broken engine mounts, that you have the 3.6 liter. Because the oil pan on the 3.6 liter is stamped steel. And it is strong enough to lift the engine up. Just put a block of wood under there, use your floor jack, and jack this thing up. No problems. I had no problems with it whatsoever. Other than, oh yeah, one other tip I've got for you. Take off this radiator hose that's right underneath here on the driver's side. I actually end up cracking the thermostat housing because it ended up pulling and cracking. I've got a little putty on there. It's not leaking right now. It's the part's on back order for 1,000 years. And so, but if you got this 3.6 liter, the oil pan is stamped steel, and so you'll be able to put a block of wood underneath there and jack it up and get your oil mounts out, and it won't be an issue. If you have the Hemi, you are in a world of hurt, because the Hemi's oil pan is plastic. It will not hold up the weight of the engine. You will break it. You will have a problem. The proper way to do this, if you have the Hemi, is they make a stabilizer bar that you can attach to, where you the mounts where you pull the engine out. And there's a stabilizer bar. You hook it on there, and you have to have a cherry picker to lift the engine up from the top. That stabilizer bar is somewhere in the neighborhood of $800 the last time that I checked. And so if you have the Hemi, pay the money, go have somebody else do it. I think that they quoted me $1,000 if I had the Hemi, and $800 for the V6 at the time that I made this video. And so, but if you've got the 3.6, you've got the V6, it's not a particularly tough job. There's a couple of heat shields on. There's heat shields on them because they're right next to the exhaust manifolds. You have to pick the heat shields off, and then there's just 3 bolts. The engine mounts, it's not a particularly hard job. It's just kind of a daunting task. It's probably harder. It probably took me 7 hours. The book rate for this is 9 hours. And it probably took me 7 hours to get all the crap off of the top of the engine, and then another 2 to do the engine mounts. And so, not particularly hard job, but it is very time consuming. I made sure to have 2 days set aside to do it so that I could, because I thought I was going to film it, take my time, do the job right. There's just nothing to film. You're working in the dark. It got to the point where the sun went down on the first day, and it didn't make a difference. I could continue working because you're doing most of it by feel anyway. The only other advice I have is do not over torque these bolts. The ones that hold this on. We actually broke one of ours off. We're lucky that it doesn't leak. We don't have a leak, so we're good. Everything's running correctly, and at some point, probably in 40,000-60,000 miles, or whenever I can find upgraded engine mounts, when I have to take all this back off, I will drill that out, retap it, and put a new bolt in, and it's not even a big deal. But that's my advice. That's what we got. And so if you have that strange oil on the ground, make sure that it's most likely your engine mounts. I appreciate you hanging out till the end here. Thanks for watching.